Studying C# 2, it's possible to use nullable structures, for example, nullable int. Of course, you can assign a null to it, or just write with a question mark alias. Strings are nullable in C#, so you can assign a null to it, or a string empty value. And they're different values, of course. It becomes inconvenient to write string empty and null equality checks. For that reason, C# has string is null or empty method, as well as is null or whitespace method. We check string also on tabs, new lines, and spaces. Custom classes reference types and nullable by default. So let's say we have a class person and we pass it to a method. And we want to check for a null. We can revert that logic and throw an exception. With C# 3 you can use the null coalescing operator, or just even throw an error if the person is null. With C# 6, instead of writing constant argument strings, we can use the nameOf operator. If we're going to call just a method on the person object, we can use the null chain operator in C# 6. Studying C# 8, we can use the null coalescing operator, but we cannot use it in the throwing exception. We can rewrite the person null check with the is keyword. In C# 10, throw if null method is introduced. It is doing the same as the previous code for the null check. In C# 8, similar to the structure nullable types, it is possible to enable nullability for the reference types. One way to do it is to use nullable annotation, enable and disable, per file or per code piece. Although the name is called nullable enable, it will actually disable null values in the reference types. Another way to do it is to enable it globally per project, edit your CS project file, then add nullable enable field, and trigger warnings as errors for nullability. Now, if you enable nullability and create a method that accepts a string argument and pass a null to it, there will be a compilation error. And if we mark it with string question mark, then we can pass null. It is very similar with custom classes. Person without question mark is non-nullable, person with question mark is nullable. It sounds awesome, but there are problems with this approach. Microsoft Entity Framework still creates non-nullable classes even with nullability enabled. During the runtime, the Entity Framework will populate persons, but compiler doesn't know about it. And now you need to make persons non-nullable yourself. One way to do it is to initialize the new dbset instance, but it is memory consuming. So people lie to compiler, they set null value to it and then add the bank sign to say that it's not null. This is super ugly. Another problem with ASP.NET DTOs, which should have nullable properties for validation reasons with data coming from the internet. And one way to resolve is to go through all properties and mark them as nullable with question mark. As this time consuming, people just disable totally the nullable check. The first problem with nullability feature is that it only works with the project. So if the project is used by another library, the checks won't work at all, because the check is done at the compile time, not at the runtime. Microsoft team explained that they can't enable it for all methods just by default because it is resource consuming. Another problem is large code bases where you need to modify the keys with the question mark. Even Microsoft couldn't enable it with their projects. So Microsoft introduced the bank operator, which has throw if null exception check, and it was unreleased after the community complaints. One exclamation mark or the bank operator is already in use, so it says, please compiler ignore the error, I know it's not null. There are some alternatives. For example, with 40 project, you can disable nullability by default and specify where to allow null. JetBrains provides its own analyzer, and you can generate a new code or analyze your code with the default Roslyn compiler from Microsoft.